Hello, everybody. Well, I would have gotten on earlier, but I had the feds were breaking my door down. Apparently, Shawnee jumped the gun, thinking I was going to be late, and went and filed charges. But hey, we're here. Sonia and Sean, thanks for being here. Tracy, hey.
Hey, everyone.
Sorry we're late. We had technical difficulties with the mic, but everybody can hear us. We're good. Sound check, sound check.
I think we're good.
Someone say something. Okay. I'm going to assume we're okay.
I think we're okay.
Okay, cool.
Happy Friday, everyone.
Yeah. Happy Friday. So thanks for joining us on our Get to Know Us. Oh, yay. Hey, Lori. There we are. Thanks for
Hey,
joining
Lori.
us so much. We're just going to talk your ears off, and we got some questions coming in, and oh yes, we have family members popping in. You know
There's my
what?
son. Yep, my son Mike.
I'm going to
And
do
Tracy.
something risky here. I'm going to invite my sister to watch. I say risky because I take no responsibility for any questions that she might want to ask. But I know that she definitely would want to. So, we got some good questions from Sean.
Yeah, we did. We got a lot of good questions.
Yeah.
And you guys can just ask stuff along the way, and we'll just try to get to as much of it as we can.
Yep.
And if we don't get to everyone's questions tonight, you can always, where to find me on X here and where to find Rachel. So if there's a question that you really want to know that didn't get answered, just reach out to us.
All right, here I'm posting this live to her.
Okay. Thanks to Mike and Tracy for joining us. Thanks to everybody for being here.
Thank you. Okay, cool. So, a little bit about our brand, why we started a channel. Cool. Yeah. So we started a channel because Scott came into my DMs on Twitter and said, "Hey, do you want to do a podcast?" And I was like, "Sure." Not literally, that's how that went down.
Yeah, it literally is. We hadn't known each other that long, and I just felt like it would be a good fit. So I just said, "Hey," and Rachel said, "Yeah, I absolutely would love to do that."
Yeah, it was awesome. We had never spoken face to face or on the phone. I don't think we had ever spoken before. It was just all through DMs and briefly here and there. So it was kind of cool. It just sort of clicked, and it was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you want to start
Scott,
first?
you start. Scott has the way more interesting background. So
No, not necessarily on that, but
he's the Renaissance man. So we'll let him go first.
So, okay, I'm going to kind of answer Sean's question and Sonia's question kind of in the same basket here, because both of the questions are, how did, you want to know about my background and what prompted us to start a channel and how I got into law enforcement. Sean had asked that. So how I got into law enforcement was really kind of an interesting story. I moved here to Oregon in 1987 and basically came here without a job and went to work for a radio station. And that didn't work out real well because radio is really hard to make good money when you're working straight commission, which I was. And so my dad was alive at that time, and he called me up and said, "Hey, Coos Bay PD is hiring. You should apply." And I didn't really have a direction on what I wanted to go, but I'd always thought it would be kind of cool to be a police officer and give back to the community. So I applied and I got hired. And I spent 20 years with Coos Bay PD, 9 of those years as an investigator, working primarily child abuse cases and some adult sex crimes and some homicides and some stalking stuff. And I was telling Rachel earlier today when we were Zooming, I tried my best to stay away from paper because I can't stand paper crime. It's just very boring to me. But so yeah, I did that. I worked on patrol for a while, and then I also have a background as a hostage negotiator. I went to a week-long training that the FBI puts on. It was actually up in Astoria, And so I did that for a while. I worked as a PIO, which is a press information officer, working with the media and stuff. And I was a canine handler for a while. And so that's kind of my background with the PD and how I got started. Once I left the police department, I did about a 4 or 5 year stint as a truancy officer with the Coos Bay School District because I retired from law enforcement. I'd seen enough in 20 years. And
I
then,
bet.
yeah. And then eventually I took a job as a forensic child interviewer here locally at our child abuse center, and was there for 6 years, and interviewed over 1,000 kids. We interview kids there between the ages of 3 and 17. So it's really kind of interesting. I could talk a long time about forensic interviewing. It's probably my biggest passion of all of the jobs that I had. I absolutely loved it. And I felt like I was giving back to the community with that. And so that's kind of my story on that.
Yeah. I don't know if Scott has forensically interviewed me yet. I actually wasn't paying attention to that, but I definitely tried to stalk him online a little bit
Yep,
um, before we actually committed to this. And I
exactly.
I encouraged him to do the same, you don't always know people, but his
Yeah,
story checks out. You can rest assured I sleuthed and, the story checked out and
yep. It's
it's all
true.
legit.
It's true. My son just reminded me, thanks, Mike, that I was also
Yeah,
a school resource officer for a few years. So, a lot of different stuff with the PD and a lot of background with schools. And anyway, that's my story.
it's cool. It's a good story. He also has some cool interests that I've l that No, I'm
Sean,
serious. A couple things
I'm
I've never
looking at Sean's comments. He's going to file charges on my behalf against you.
against me. You know what, Sean? Get your law degree, okay? Um, yeah, you have some other interests too, though. So I'm keeping like a running list of like all these interesting things that Scott knows about, so I can.
Are you pushing me to talk about myself?
Yes, I'm pushing you to talk a little bit more because there's much more to you. He reminds me, like, he's like, "Did I ever tell you?" And then tells me something really interesting about himself, like every other day. So,
Yeah. So I'm a licensed certified ham radio operator. Right now, I just have my technician license for the 2 meter band. But
okay, but hold on.
okay.
I don't do people know what that is? Do you guys know? I mean, Mike probably knows because he's your son, but do people know what a ham radio is? Anyone? I didn't. It doesn't mean that other people don't, because there's a lot of stuff I don't know, but
So basically, if you don't know, it's a form of communication that allows you, depending on the license that you have. Right now, I have a technician license, so I can talk off the repeater over my amateur radio for a few states away from here, like up into Washington, things like that. And it's
it's
really
cool.
handy in times of disaster, that sort of thing. Or passing messages to someone, or whatever the case may be. Hams do a lot. And the once you get the general license, then you can talk pretty much all over the world if you have the right antenna and the right radio. So that's it's a
See,
cool
okay,
hobby.
guys. I'm the one that didn't know. Everybody knows. I guess you didn't have to explain, but that's really cool. My dog has a toy that's shaped like a ham that I was actually going to have with me when you started talking about that and show you, but I forgot to have it over here.
Way to go. Way to go. Way to be prepared.
I was thinking. I was thinking, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, Scott, like, I learn a lot of stuff from him. It's awesome.
Yeah,
He's has a
thanks.
cat too
I have a cat
that
named
he's
Jojo.
always
Yep.
kicking out of the room.
Yeah, I have to get Jojo out of the room because he does have a tendency to tear stuff up
Yeah.
and
And
disrupt everything.
I don't know how much you wanna say about your kids, but this law enforcement thing, although you kinda stumbled into it,
Mhm.
is like family thing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I should have seen it coming, but I actually did not. And Mike's probably cracking up right now, and Tracy. But I didn't really see that coming. That they would all end up in law enforcement ultimately, and they have. Two of my sons work in a small agency north of me, and then my other son works in an agency north of that here on the coast. So, and I worry about it now because law enforcement, I'm going to tell you guys, is way different now than it was when I was in. People are less stable. It's a whole different ball game now. And, unfortunately, the lawmakers are doing their level best to try to take some of the police power away, and people want to defund the police and all that stuff. And it's craziness.
It's a lot. I mean, we have you and I both have a great job security, but I mean, that's not
Hmm.
a good thing and a bad thing. I'm sure I could find some other jobs to do if people were getting better and better, but yeah. Yeah. So,
So, what about you,
Ooh,
Dr. Rachel? Do
what about
tell.
me? Oh, I live on all the way on the other coast. I live on the East Coast. I am a clinical and forensic psychologist. So I was just sharing with Scott earlier today, that I've always known I wanted to be a psychologist. And I kind of had, so like, was thinking about this, Scott, and I think we kind of had a therapy session earlier
We did.
because I kind of had this realization of like how I got into psychology and true crime and all of this stuff. It like dawned on me that, wow, this was it. And this might sound really crazy. I was about 8 years old when the first miniseries came out about, I know my first name is Steven. Um, his last name is I'm blanking on it now.
Me too.
Um, and they just did a remake of it like a year or 2 ago. But so I was about 8 years old, and who knows why in the world, but my mom let me watch that miniseries by myself. I was by myself in the basement. So if you guys don't know what the story is, this was like a 7-year-old boy who was kidnapped, and he was held for 7 years. He finally escaped his kidnapper when he was about 14, and went to the police and said, All I know is my first name is Steven." And that's how the name of it came about. Um, Terrible even aftermath story of that. I won't get into it. But ever since ever since watching that as a kid, I was convinced that I was gonna be kidnapped, like, my entire childhood, and I'm laughing about it, it's not funny, but, like, this was just me in my head, and Lifetime movies were, like, starting up in my middle school days, and, like, my mom and I would have, dinners where we would, like, sit down together and watch Lifetime movies all about, like,
Mhm.
domestic violence and all this kinda stuff. It's, like, wild. What I would never like, thinking about doing that with my 8 to 10-year-old, like, it's just crazy, but times are different, I guess. Anyway, so I was thinking that, so I would go like, I had a little kid I played with next door, and I was always teaching him about, like, stranger danger, and Steven Stainer. Yep, you're right. No, it's not funny at all. It's awful. But I remember I believed that I saved me and my neighbor from kidnappers at one point because this truck came down. This is like shortly after I watched that miniseries, and this truck came down our street and was like, "Hey, you kids like to ride bikes?" And I was like, "No, no, Robbie, come on, we gotta go." So like I was like, I just saved our lives. Anyway, so fast forward. I was also you guys are gonna think I'm the biggest weirdo by the end of this. Scott, just give me the if it
No,
starts to sound too
you're good.
strange.
You're good. You're good.
Okay, so another vivid memory that I had here. So when I was 10, it's like about 5th grade, we had underneath our basement stairs, we had this little cutout like cubby hole. And I had like this little miniature desk and stuff in there. Sonia's like, "No, please tell us how weird you are." Um, so I would like set up a desk and stuff in there, and I ran my own clinic, pretend obviously, where I like created these charts on people. Like I had like therapy notes, and I think it was kind of like a domestic violence shelter that I was running under there. And so I would like call people's families on my fake phone and like yell at them for not supporting their daughters and like all this. I just remember doing that. And I had this little file system. So anywho, that was like my it's like my destiny. I'm sorry. This is so ridiculous. Hearing myself say this is so dumb. Okay, so yeah, so going into even like high school, college, I knew I wanted to be a psychologist. That was my job. That was what I was going to do. Went to college specifically for that. Got my doctorate, went straight through, and yes, I had and have an imagination for sure. It's a blessing and a curse. Sonia. So gosh. I'm gonna end the show and be like, I'm deleting this video. Okay, so then I wanted to originally go into forensic psychology was my initial plan, which didn't and then I decided I didn't want to. So my specialization was in the treatment and evaluation of severe mental illness, which I loved. Community mental health, state hospitals, awesome, loved it. That's what I graduated with my doctorate. Did my residency in a state hospital, then worked in the prison system. And then when I started having kids, I'm like, I think I need to slow it down. So got into private practice, and I was so bored because I get bored really, really easily. So that's part of why psychology is awesome because there's so many different parts of psychology to get into.
Mhm.
Um, the person I worked with at the time did some civil forensics in family court, and she started kind of roping me into cases, and decided I wanted to respecialize. So that's what I did. I did continuing education and some consultation for a couple years to do custody evaluation, reunification therapy, uh, parent capacity evaluations, and other family court things. And then also in the past year, I have started to do some criminal forensics too, some mental state exams and competency evaluations. So that's where I am right now. I have a private practice. I have contracts with the state and the public defender's office through an agency, and that's my full time gig. So my other full time gig is two kids. I have a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old,
Yep.
um, and that's my job. That's my first job. So
Yeah,
yeah,
all my sons are grown now, and I have 3 sons, so they're all grown, and, like I was saying earlier, they all live down here, so we get to see each other, quite a bit.
it's
So,
cool.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
cool. I should mention too, my husband, he's amazing. He did our logo. Thank you,
you
Kyle.
did.
Very
Yep,
cool.
thank you, Kyle.
And my dog, I have a dog who's a pain and not allowed in this part of the house. We love him, but he's a moose and he's huge. And I have two immortal guinea pigs. If anyone knows of anyone who would like to adopt two geriatric guinea pigs that might never die, just DM me. You know where to find me. I will ship them for free.
You have been holding out. I never knew you had guinea pigs.
There's a reason. I try to not think about them. I loved them for a long time until I realized they were gonna live past 8 years old, which is what they're approaching, so
Ah, yeah, yeah.
I will never have a caged animal again, ever.
Well, should we take some questions or
Yeah, what else do you guys wanna
yeah,
know?
yeah, we've
'Cause
got some,
Sean asked some other ones
yeah.
too. Yeah.
He did. So, I have those here on my phone, and guys, just type in what you wanna know. If you don't wanna know
Anything.
anything, that's okay too. Let's
If you want
see.
Scott to tell weird stuff about him so that I don't look so weird, then
I
he can do that too, or I can make some stuff up about him if
yeah,
you want.
just do that. So, let me see
Oh,
here.
wait.
Another question that we had, and this is actually a really great question, and Sean asked this earlier today, and I wanted to address it. And thanks for this. Thanks for all these questions, Sean. So, you had asked the question, do I feel like I made a difference in the world as a police officer? And I've been asked that a lot through the years. That is a great question. And my short answer on that is sort of. And the reason I say that is because, I know as a police officer, you're out there helping people and doing the job and responding to these horrible calls that, you see more as a police officer in your first week than most people see in their entire lives as far as violence and crime and stuff like that goes. So there is that. And, I liked the helping aspect of it, but I'll be honest with you guys, and my sons can back this up. It's a revolving door out there now with the criminal world. And, a lot of what we do as police officers, I feel like is more reactive than it is proactive. And so, yes, I know that I've helped some families through the years. I've had people come up to me years later and say, "Hey, you helped my daughter with her case," or whatever the case may be. So I know that that's a help. Sorry, I was looking at a comment here.
That's right.
But in the long run, it's I don't feel that you make as big a difference as a police officer as you hope to think when you first go into that role, if that makes any sense. I had high expectations. Oh my gosh, and I was a lot younger then too. And a little bit more less mature, not immature, but didn't have the life experience that I have now. So I went in with these ideals of, okay, we're going to go in, we're going to do great things.
Mm.
And sometimes that happens, but that's not always the case. It's just not.
Yeah.
So great
And I can
question, Sean. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can piggyback on that because I know one of Sean's questions was something to the effect of, do I feel like, what was the family court question? Do I feel like the court could be doing more to help families stay together? Something to that effect.
Hmm. Yes.
Um,
Let me find it.
so
Sorry, I forgot I had the questions here. Sorry.
no, that's okay. So, and Lori asked too, do I ever testify in court on my custody evaluation cases? Yes, I do. Not all of them. A lot of times, I would say most of the time, the parents end up taking recommendations and stipulating to some sort of agreement that the court signs, which is great.
Hmm.
Um, Not always, but they do know that when it gets to the point where there's a custody evaluation, it is like the last resort. Things are already a mess. They know that the judge is going to rely heavily on the results of that evaluation. So they often like to save themselves the money and just agree to something based on those recommendations.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that any case that I work on civilly in family court, by the time it gets to court, it's already bad. um, I don't see the court as the place to make the changes to keep families together or to repair families. Um, I think that starts way earlier, and prevention is a big thing that when I do trainings for the judges and attorneys in our area, I talk to them about prevention because like I said, by the time someone hires an attorney and gets to court, they've already tried a lot of other avenues, and litigation feels like their only,
Hmm.
way to change things, and so,
Yeah.
when you're looking at things like children who are alienated or resist contact with one parent or the other, or allegations of abuse, all of those kinds of things, what I can do is limited, let's put it that way, and sometimes feels very limited. I can make recommendations, I can, work with the family to try to repair things, but, it's really more about identifying these families ahead of time before
Hmm.
it gets to litigation or very early on in litigation, so training attorneys on how to recognize, what services to direct their clients, in the way of because litigation takes forever. I
Yeah.
have kids that, were referred to me and like they're gonna be aged out in 3 years and they've already been in this process for 8. Like it's crazy. That's their whole childhood. It's really sad. So that prevention and early, influence, I think is where we can do better, with keeping families intact and with good relationships. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I
And
agree.
someone had asked what trials are we following right
Okay.
now?
Hmm.
I'm gonna be watching Chad Daybell.
Yep.
Um, I just watched, Jesse Krzyzewski's sentencing today. I don't know if you guys watched that. I was feeling a little snarky today, so I posted some about the about the sentencing because sometimes you're just like, "This is like, is this real life? This is wild," you know?
Hmm.
What's wild to me is how people can convince themselves so well that they're telling the truth when they're actually lying, that it makes you question. Because I'm sitting here, like, forgetting all the evidence that from that trial, I'm like, "Maybe she didn't do it." But then I'm like, "Okay, Rachel, no," like,
Yeah.
it's wild, like, she's telling this whole story, like, I think she really believes it at this point, I really do, it's
Hmm.
crazy.
Hmm. Yeah. Some people actually do believe their own stories. I mean, that's one way they justify it. It's
Yeah,
been done. Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
For 2
Yeah.
hours, Judge Doro.
Oh my gosh. And I mean, it was bad enough with the Darrell Brooks case when she had that,
Oh
and now she
gosh,
has
good
this
luck.
crazy case. And yeah, that lady is a saint of a judge.
She
I don't know how
is.
she does it.
And she looks fantastic. I just wanna put that
Yeah.
out there. I know that is really, surface and trivial of me to bring up, but she looks amazing. I would have been aged 25 years just on the Darrell Brooks trial alone, and she's got it going on. So,
She
I wanna
does.
know what
She
her
does.
skincare routine is. She's like Yeah.
One of
Yeah.
the cases, talking about cases that we're following, one case that I'm really interested in following, and I think it starts in July if it goes, Rach, is the
Mhm.
Alec Baldwin case, the upcoming Alec
Yeah.
Baldwin case. And especially now with Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armor having been found guilty, I'm just wondering. I know that Alec Baldwin has now said that he's basically terrified to go to court
I
because
bet.
he's afraid. Yeah, he's afraid people are going to judge him. I don't know, you guys. I'm going to throw it out there. I have really mixed feelings on that case, and I
Mhm.
haven't come to a place 100% yet where I know how I truly feel about Alec's guilt. There are times that I'm like, and my wife and I have talked about this a lot, and she's like 100%. Alec was basically not set up, but was given a bad deal because he had
Mhm.
people that he hired, an armorer who is supposed to know what's in that gun at all times and didn't check it. And then other people looking out for him too. And they handed him this gun and they said cold gun. And I don't know what you guys think, and you might think I'm crazy or you might disagree, but I can totally see how you could make that mistake as an
Yeah.
actor and be like, okay, bottom line is the way I look at it, there shouldn't have been any ammunition in that gun to begin with.
No.
All he was doing was practice drawing. There should have been nothing in it and it would have been easy. But anyway, that's my rant on that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's so I feel like just any negligence case like this, it's just so tough because you can watch a case where you know the intent was there, right? Somebody
Right.
planned out a murder, they went to that's a different kind of situation than somebody who this it's horrible. This is tragic and horrible, and I can't as much of a jerk as Alec Baldwin is,
Hmm.
or seems to be, obviously, I don't know him, but from what you do know about him, you're like, "Oh gosh,"
Hmm.
he's kinda one of these people that I feel like what he puts out there is what he gets back,
Right.
But he didn't mean to hurt this lady, he did not, and it's just
No.
tragic for everybody, and yeah,
I think we might have just lost you, Rach. You froze up. Can you
did
hear
we
me
just
okay? There you
yeah,
go.
I think we
Now
just
you're
cut out.
back. You
Okay, I
froze
don't
up.
know.
Yeah. You're back.
We just had a little blip. But yeah, but he did, at some point you rely on the people you've hired, and is it your fault for hiring them? You didn't know they were gonna be terrible. It's just
Right.
complicated. Yeah,
Well,
I
and
don't know
the
how I
thing,
feel either.
yeah, the thing, and sorry to cut you off there.
No, go ahead.
The thing that kind of bothers me about the whole situation too with Hannah is she said early on in the investigation, she told the police this. Was like, I almost didn't even take this job because I didn't feel like I had the confidence and the ability to do the job properly. But she took it anyway. And to
Yeah.
me, that just spoke volumes. But anyway, it'll be interesting to see where it goes with Alec now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Erica, yeah, I'm kind of the same way. It's like, yep, he is the one that did it. Should he have double checked, is that protocol? I don't think anyone knew what the protocols were.
Yeah. I
And
think it
then
was
whose fault is
just,
that? It's like, I don't know.
yeah. Yeah. I just realized that was Erica, EGR.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, Erica. Thanks for being
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see both sides too, Erica. I mean, he did point that gun and he did shoot that gun. And so I don't know how it's going to
Yeah.
shake out, but it's going to be interesting.
Oh gosh, Suitcase Sarah Boone. When is that trial? That's coming up soon too.
Oh yeah.
I can't remember when that is, but Sonia, I will laugh sometimes, and I don't want anyone to ever think that I'm laughing about what happened to the people. I laugh because sometimes I'm just like, parts of this case are so ridiculous and
Hmm.
unbelievable that you just kinda have to laugh maybe to relieve the tension, to have some levity, but,
Yeah.
that whole entire scenario is the most bizarre. And so here's Scott, you and I have talked about this. So,
Hmm.
there are some people who get in these situations where, first of all, these situations these people get into, the suitcase thing, the eye drop murder, it's like, these aren't normal situations. These aren't situations where, "Oh, I was at the wrong place at the wrong time and this weird thing happened." Like, I think defendants and their attorneys, they try to make it seem that way. Like,
Hmm.
come up with the most bizarre reason why this wasn't my fault, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And and some people do get stuck in really bad situations like, Amanda, Amanda Knox,
Mhm.
right? And so we kind of talked about this a little bit, how people's personalities play such a huge role in what ends up happening to them when
Yeah.
they're in these trials and when they're in these situations. So Sarah, you know, their be the behaviors that are personality based with Jesse Kushevsky, Sarah Boone, just all the things you see them filing, the things they're writing, the way they communicate with people. It's like this constant turmoil and
Yep.
conflict.
Yep.
You know, it makes them may have nothing to do with the crime they're being accused of, but it sure does make it seem more likely that they were involved, if that makes sense.
It
Like
does.
these personality things, these are personality issues. These are abnormal ways of behaving. These aren't ways that normal people cope with and deal with,
Right.
you know, being arrested and
You're cut out again. We'll give you a sec to get back here.
cut off.
There you go. You're
Okay,
back.
we're back. So yeah, so I was, like Amanda Knox, I think is a person who is a little eccentric.
Mhm.
Um, she behaved a little odd, but she's also very young. Um, I think that people thought she was guilty, like, they used that part of her personality, they
Mhm.
saw the eccentricity, and thought, "Well, yeah, she's gotta be it because she's a little weird." If
Yeah. Yeah. Well, while we're waiting for Rachel to come back again, if you guys want to read a good book, speaking of Amanda Knox, I'm gonna plug their book right now. So they're friends of mine. Anne Bremner is a journalist and an attorney, is Seattle based, and her brother Doug Bremner is a psychology professor, I believe, in Baltimore. And they wrote an amazing book called Justice in the Age of Judgment. And basically, that book covers Amanda Knox and a ton of other really interesting trials, some very high profile, some not so high profile. And it's really the whole premise of the book is about how so many of these cases are tried in social media and convicted in social media and the media itself before the case ever goes to trial. And it's a great read. And I'm not getting paid for saying that or anything like that. I know Ann and Doug, and their book's amazing. So check it out. Back to you, Rachel. Except you're having internet issues
I
today.
know, I just told
There you go.
my husband's trying to watch some video, I think it's interrupting what we're
Oh,
doing. I
okay.
don't know what's going on. He
Yeah.
said he's gonna stop his video. Um, and the kids are probably upstairs playing Roblox and watching YouTube also, but not our channel. So
So yeah, so we'll go to another question here while we're waiting for Rachel to come back again.
you have to tell me
So
when I'm back.
you're back. So you just got back. So one of the questions that I've had a couple of people ask here, and my son brought it up, and Sean asked this question is, what are some of the cases that are really horrifying to me? And I think they asked you the same question, Rachel. So I'll let you go in just a sec too and tell about yours. But Rachel and I were talking today, and for people that know me know that there are three things case wise that really make me absolutely crazy. I cannot stand abusive women. I can't stand it, and I can't stand animal abuse, and I can't stand child abuse. And I don't want to get into the specifics of the cases because I don't want to trigger anybody, because some of the stuff that I have worked is pretty gross. I'm going to tell you right now. But at the same time, those cases to me, especially some of the really bad animal abuse cases I've seen, those stick with me in many ways. And it's just the way I'm wired, you guys. I'm taking nothing away from the other cases. I'm saying I'm wired that way. Animal abuse, child abuse, spousal abuse, things like that, it's some of those cases are just horrifying to me. And I did work a case a number of years ago. It was an assist for the sheriff's office. I went out to help them. I was on what they call the hit team, the homicide investigation team. And I went out on that case, and it was, I won't tell you exactly what it was, but it was very clear that the wife had brought home dinner that night, and they had a big old domestic, and it led to her being murdered, and it was just disgusting. So those are some of the things that really have bothered me in my career throughout law enforcement.
I'm scared to move because I don't want my internet to be unstable. I think I'm okay now that the video upstairs has stopped.
Yeah,
Yeah, Erica makes a good point there, like, people getting kicked while they're down, or the weaker
exactly.
being taken advantage of, those are awful. I think,
Yep.
I don't I do work with some, horrible cases, particularly through our child and protective services. I don't often have to see the children, which I guess is helpful emotionally. I see the parents for evaluations. Sometimes I have to do observations with parents who
Hmm.
weren't the direct abusers of children, but maybe allowed it to happen or weren't properly monitoring. So that gets tough sometimes. But I think the cases that I'm very good at compartmentalizing. So
Hmm.
when I say a case keeps me up at night, oftentimes that means that I'm late on a report and I can't stop processing the report in my mind.
Hmm.
It's like I just like have to wake up and write it. But I see a lot of cases where if you were going to give a parent a grade, like from school, one of the parents is an F and another parent's a
Hmm.
C minus.
Yep,
And I'm
absolutely.
in a position where I'm having to make recommendations for it's like, well, you either put someone in a kid in a not very ideal situation, family situation where like you wouldn't want your own kids there, but it's not necessarily abusive versus a with a parent who there's like this low grade I say low grade abuse because I'm not talking about like physical abuse. I'm more or less talking about subtle psychological abuse or parents maybe who have personality disorders who just they can't put their kids' needs ahead of their own, those kinds of things where it's like, how do I make recommendations for a child when I wouldn't put my own kid in either of those situations, right? And but
Mhm.
that's all they have. That's all I have to choose from. So those are the cases that really keep me up at night
Mhm.
is just or if I have to make a recommendation that I know is best for the child, but the child is not gonna understand,
Mhm.
it is an awful feeling to know that I've made a recommendation that's been adopted that's gonna make a child cry later. I
Mhm.
had one of those recently, and I just my heart goes out because while I know long term it's the best for the kid, I know when that kid heard what was gonna happen, they were very upset, and that
Yeah.
breaks my heart, but, you know, it could be a lot worse. So those are the ones I stay awake thinking
Yeah.
about for sure.
I think in our line of work, yours, Rachel, and mine, I think unless you are good at compartmentalizing, it can really get you because I know that
Mhm.
that is what helped me survive my career. I was able to just do the job and compartmentalize, and not that it didn't bother me, but that is what got me through a lot. And I've had
Yeah.
this conversation with all of my sons. I mean, I know officers who now are a wreck, really a
Yeah.
mess because they couldn't compartmentalize and the stuff they saw was
It's
just too much
traumatic.
for them. Yeah, very much
Yeah.
so. And
Yeah.
so I feel really lucky to have that. I guess you would call it a skill. I don't know what you'd call it, but
Well, it's kinda
um,
like a surgeon, right? Like, not everybody
yeah,
is wired to be able to cut people open and, like,
correct.
but it's necessary. We need surgeons, right, to save
Yeah.
lives, and I think it's kinda similar. You need, people that can compartmentalize because someone has to look at this stuff. Somebody
Hmm.
has to deal with it. So I think, we all have our own gifts and
Yep.
abilities and
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
Erica just made a really good comment here, and that's basically why she walked away from studying social work because, she's not good at compartmentalizing, and that's okay. Some people are not, you
yeah.
know. It's a
Yeah, and
hard
that's
job.
fine. She's
I always
Erica's like, I don't even really know her. I swear she's one of the most gifted people that I've come
Mhm.
across around here. Like, I mean, Erica, everything that you are doing is amazing.
It
So,
really is. It
yeah.
really is. Yeah, we've talked about you and we really appreciate you.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I don't know, I've always said one job that I would never wanna have is the job of a social worker for, like, CPS, child welfare.
Mhm.
I mean, as I've gone out
Yeah.
with them multiple times, and I gotta tell you guys, I mean, some of
Mhm.
you will probably know this, I mean, they see some of the worst stuff that you can see because oftentimes when you go to these homes where there's abuse going on, people are afraid of the police. They will not let the police in because
Right.
of the uniform unless we have a search warrant. but DHS isn't in a uniform, and a lot of times they're able to get into the house easier. And consequently, they see a lot of stuff that even us in law enforcement don't necessarily see with family dynamics and things like that.
Mhm.
So that's a tough job.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I read about it, but I don't go to the houses and see it, it's very
Hmm.
different when
Hmm.
you reading about it versus, actually having to go and intervene. Yeah, no, I couldn't do that. I couldn't work with the animal abuse situation, not even one
Yeah.
day, not even
Yep.
one case. There's no
Yeah.
way.
No, no
So,
way. No way.
yeah,
And Erica, yes, you do deserve that compliment.
you do. Absolutely
You definitely do.
100%.
And so, yeah, I agree with you. A lot of people end up bailing out of DHS because it's just too traumatic for them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of turnover with
Yeah.
child services, and part of that is because it's trauma. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think people always realize what it's actually gonna be like. You could again, you can read about it, you can study it, but actually being there with somebody in the situation is very
Hmm.
different.
It really
Very
is.
different. Um,
Let me
yeah.
see. So let's take a look here. We've got some more questions here.
Okay.
And I hope I'm not missing anybody's questions on there. I might be. Sorry if I am, guys. We're
Oh,
just getting started doing
Sonia
this.
asked
So,
about what our future plans are. So,
oh,
for the
yeah.
show, so we are working on lining up some other guests. I actually, we want to talk a little bit about the Ruby Frankie Jody Hildebrandt case, and
Hmm.
not some. I know a lot of horrible information has come out, and that's not really we don't really want to go over details like that, but more the conceptual things behind
Hmm.
those cases. So, working on getting a colleague of mine to come on to talk about just cult dynamics in general.
Hmm.
I think it's like a huge question for me and everyone, like, how in the world can someone be brainwashed, especially as an adult,
Hmm.
Like, you can kind of figure it with kids, but, like, and he has a lot of good, so we're working on someone for that. We've been reaching out. We've had a couple people approach us to talk about different legal issues,
Hmm.
have an attorney, join us to kind of fill in the gaps,
Hmm.
that we have.
Hmm.
Um, Scott, I don't know if you wanna speak to any of the other, I mean, we have a lot of cases coming up with big
Yeah,
topics underlying them, so
we do. We do. I mean, obviously, one that's going to be coming up here. I don't know how soon it's actually going to go to court, but it's the Koberger case, the Idaho
Mhm,
4, the massacre in Moscow, Idaho. And we want to try to get. I have a friend who's in the FBI that I met on Twitter, and we're going to try to get her to come in. I'd like her to talk about that down the road. Um, I know Lori Latimer mentioned that she would be willing to come on. She's been in
yay.
family law and
Yeah,
clerk for 30 some years, I think she said.
yep,
And we want to, we have some things in mind. And we're not exactly sure what order we need to do it in, but we've got a lot of things coming up, guys. We're really excited about this new channel. So,
yeah,
we're going to try to continue to do things every week. It may not always be on Fridays, depending on Rachel's schedule or my schedule, but you guys will always know ahead of time when we're going to do it.
yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I think, we won't be, like, live streaming trials and things like that. We'll be more conceptual people,
Yeah,
coming on talking
exactly.
about some of the underlying issues and that kinda thing, so, and some of the legal I think one of the things that real always intrigues almost everybody who follows these trials is just the complicated um uh, legal situations,
Hmm.
like the Young Thug trial. I mean, what is even happening? What is even I feel so bad for Kathy Rusin from, Law and Crime Network. She's
Hmm.
been covering that trial for, like, 100 years,
Yeah,
and it's not gonna end for another 100. So,
I
like,
know.
it's insane, and just, our legal system's wild. Um,
Yeah, it
so
really is. It's
mhm,
it's wild and it's backed up. And the thing with the Koberger case that's driving me crazy is that, and I have to be careful what I say because some people feel he's innocent, some people feel he's not. But I do have to say that his defense attorney, Ann Taylor, has done
mhm,
a pretty remarkable job of keeping this delayed for as long as she can. And
mhm.
I don't know what your guys' opinions of that is. Some people may like that, some people may not. But as a defense attorney, she is flat doing her job, and
Yeah,
she
yeah,
really
like,
is.
our sense of justice, I mean, we want it to happen now, right? Like
Yeah.
we want this guy to be either found guilty or not get like let's get this done. But man, if I were in that situation, I'd pick her.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, she's that's the defense. She's doing everything she possibly can, which is what she's
Mhm.
supposed to do. And it's
Mhm.
aggravating, but
Yep.
that's
Yep.
it's aggravating to us and we're not it doesn't matter. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Lori
Yeah.
Latimer just brought up that the Lori Daybell trial in Arizona is going to be very
Mhm.
interesting, which it will be.
Yeah, it will be.
And yeah, and
Lori
Lori
Vallow
says,
is sorta I don't know what's going
"Oh
on behind those
man,
eyes right now.
yeah, I don't know either. I don't know
Yeah.
either." But and
Yeah.
Lori mentioned she has been in this system in the justice system for 34 years, so that's a long
Yeah.
time, Lori. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. We, the Chad Dorman trial is
Hmm.
coming up too, and again, I think we're less into talking about the details of the crimes and more about the
Hmm.
underlying issues, and so that's gonna be a not guilty by reason of insanity case that I'm gonna wanna talk a lot about.
Hmm.
Um,
Same here, and
just
that's one we covered with Josh too.
Yeah, yeah, and just kinda talking about how that whole thing works.
Hmm.
I can have a baby during the young adult you could probably have more than 1 baby. You could probably have the, like what are the when you have, like, 1 kid like, 2 kids within 2 years, what are they called? There's, like, something twins or whatever. Yeah, you could totally do that. Get on it,
That
Sonia.
is that is a great comment, Sonia.
It's so funny. Yeah, I know, and so Lori that's a good point, like, I've noticed lately too, and I don't know if it's just what the media is picking up because, and again, Scott and I've talked about this too,
Uh-huh.
because of the world that we work in and then, the interests that we have, it seems like these crimes and these events happen all the time, like it's a majority, but it's really just the ones we hear about,
Right.
right? So I've seen a lot too, Lori, of like it seems like a lot of moms, a lot of women doing terrible things to kids, but I hate to call it like a trend in reporting, but it almost does make me wonder if it's just like the media is picking up
Mhm.
and deciding to report on these because, "Oh, this reminds us of the earlier one," and making it seem
Mhm.
like there's some increase in it, but really it's just what we're being exposed to. I'm not sure.
I don't know, I have different outlooks on that too. There are times where I can't decide on this one either, is it happening more? Is it being reported more? Is the stuff
Mhm,
worse? Honestly, you guys, my opinion is I think that part of it is just the times that we're in right now, and, things are just less stable in our country. There's more anger, there's more hate. There's just a lot more stuff going on than I remember when I was in law enforcement before. But having said that, I think what Rachel just said, it makes a very good point. I think maybe some of it, the media is picking up on it more and, putting it out there and giving the impression that it's way more advanced, way more happening than it actually is. Like Rachel just said, I mean, the vast majority of those cases, the vast majority of the good things we don't hear about. It's the bad stuff that they bring out into the media, and that's what we end up
mhm.
hearing about, and that really kind of taints our impression.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's like Lori could tell you this from family law. You would think working in that field, like, anytime you hear about divorce, you're like, "Oh, no." And I'll never I'll never forget, um like, it was a few years after I got into doing custody work, and I was taking my daughter to dance class, and there are these parents that I didn't even realize the whole year, like, they were divorced parents, and I had no idea, and I had no idea because they got along, and, like,
Mhm.
they did exchanges after a dance class, and that's how I ended up finding out that they were, divorced and sharing time with the kid, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's wild, like, that someone
Mhm.
could be in
Yeah.
a in a joint custody situation and not this isn't an issue, like, it's fine, they're getting along, they're collaborating, I'm like, "That doesn't ever happen," but the reality is it happens most of the time, but I
Mhm.
never see it because
Right.
the people that come to me are at their wit's end. So, I was telling somebody the other day, like, it's really these custody cases are, only 10% of parents who divorce with kids have to go to the court for help with a
Mhm.
parenting plan or some kind of custody situation. 2% of that 10% are considered high conflict and end up in custody evaluations and long litigation and that kind of thing. It's a very small percentage. So one of the things I tell my clients when we do custody evaluation, reunification and all this, I let them know most people can figure this out. So
Mhm.
the fact that you're here right now, seeing me tells me that you are in a very, very small percentage of people that cannot figure this out, and that's a problem. And
Mhm.
I just put it out there for them, like, "You guys gotta realize this isn't normal, and this isn't
Right.
normal for your kids."
Right.
Um, so, yeah, it is. We hear the worst of the worst, and then social media too, and then if you've been in those situations before too, personally, it does feel like a much bigger thing,
Yeah.
much more global situation too, and I get that, but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we can we can hold on to hope and that there's light in the world, and the things that we see all the time isn't necessarily the majority
Mhm.
of all
Yeah.
situations. Yeah.
Yeah. I still, for the most part, I believe that. I do. I mean, when I first started in law enforcement, they used to say, okay, you're dealing with 20% of the population. And that's probably a little less accurate now. I do think things have changed a little bit. And I think the population is a little bit higher of those who engage in criminal stuff than 20%. But still, like Rachel was
You
just saying,
think?
the best. Yeah.
Yeah? Well, what
Yeah.
do you think it is?
Percentage wise,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have an exact number.
You
You
talking
talk
like misdemeanors too, like petty crime, misdemeanor
No,
crimes?
not
Okay.
really. I'm talking more, really heinous stuff,
You think
basically.
20% of the population
I'm saying
participates
that
in that?
I see what you're saying. I'm saying that I think 20% of the population back when I started
Oh,
was probably pretty accurate, in terms of
okay.
criminals that we deal with on a regular basis.
Hmm.
Now I think it might be a little bit higher, but that's just my thought.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
seems high.
Yeah.
Like, I get if you're talking about, like, shoplifting and misdemeanor kinda stuff.
I
If you're
am. I
talking
misunderstood your question. I
Oh,
misspoke.
okay,
I'm
you are
talking I'm
talking
talking
about
about the whole combined thing. Sorry.
Oh, okay, okay, not just felony.
No.
Okay. I'm like,
Way
yeah,
to
like 20% of the population is not incarcerated, but yeah,
way
yeah,
to way
okay.
to way to reel me in.
Yeah, just making sure, making
Yeah,
sure we're accurate.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Like, come on, I'm trying to hold on to some hope in this world, please.
I know, right?
20% is like half the block on my house.
Yeah, yeah. No, I just misspoke.
So
I think
near my house. I mean, yeah,
you're back.
it's
You're back.
wild.
Okay, you
What
froze
else
up
do
there for a
what else
second.
do we have?
I don't know, guys. What else do you want to
Oh,
talk
am I
about
back?
here? You're back. Yeah. Erica
Okay.
brought up
Yeah, we
the situation on the Koberger thing, that,
Mhm.
hopefully they had probable cause for the arrest. And it's possible that the fingerprint was planted on the sheath, but it's not probable. I would
Yes.
agree with that. I mean, it'd be pretty insane for the police to try to, put that evidence there to set things up. Although there are people who believe that's true and they're entitled to their opinions, and I have no issue with people's differing opinions at all. What I do know from talking to one of my friends in the FBI who's really familiar with the case is that there's a lot of evidence that we have not heard about, and
I'm
that's
sure.
pretty normal in a case like this. They're not going to throw it all out there till trial.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yep. Well, and yeah, that's I mean, we don't really even have a whole lot of time to talk about it, but I think we're all kind of hoping that law enforcement has a lot more evidence than we know of, with
Mhm.
relation to Sebastian Rogers as well, which is just aggravating the heck out of me to not
Mhm.
know, but, it's not for me to know, but it's just
That's
aggravating.
It's a hot case, and
Yeah.
and Rachel, you and I were talking about this today, and we've talked multiple times, and I've had this conversation with my wife. It's been a while since I've seen a big time case in the media like this that has got so much misinformation, so much confusion, so much of, people don't really know what's going on, hoping that law enforcement has way more than they have. And, they're not saying very much at all.
Right.
And, I don't know what to say about that other than what I just said, but it's a very concerning case right now.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
is. It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
What else do you guys wanna know? Yeah, Eric, I do think you're right. More desperation, drug abuse. Drugs are I mean, we could talk about drugs. We could talk about
Mhm.
drugs all week.
Mhm.
But just even the drug world, I mean, the drugs people are using, that has all changed in the
Yeah.
past 10 years, I mean, even, and, yeah, it's causing a lot of different issues, I think,
Yeah.
and mental health also. While there's so much more awareness about mental health, it's like we can't keep up.
Mhm.
We can't keep up, so it's
Mhm.
tough. Oh
Yeah.
gosh, what's our opinion? We're getting asked what our opinions now. Oh, the Oxford shooter parent. I feel like, Sonia, that's such a good question. I feel like that's a whole
Yeah.
episode, 'cause I really find myself dissecting that to death.
Mhm.
And I really think that's a case where I can see all angles,
Mhm.
um, of the situation. I think that um I think the right thing was done in that particular case,
Mhm.
because in my opinion, they ignored the kid when he was
Mhm.
asking for help. They really ignored him, and I think that evidence was made really clear, and I think that was very problematic, and on top of that, provided him with a gun that he had access to. I mean, I get really I get really hesitant to say that this is a good precedence, because
Mhm.
my worry would be there would be an overgeneralization. I
Mhm.
would just hope that every case is taken, um, very specifically and individually, case by
Mhm.
case,
Mhm.
because there are certainly things that your children are going to do that you do not have control over, no matter how much help you get for them, no matter how
Right.
much you try, and so I would hope that there would never be a situation where, um, the parents were viewed as responsible in some way when they truly did do
Mhm.
everything they could, but just because of
Mhm.
the public's anger. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if
I
I'm being clear about that,
You're
but
you're being very clear, and we're on the same page, Rachel, on some of that too. I
Mhm,
believe that it's a very dangerous precedent to set to charge the parents of every child. Now, in my opinion, it has to be pretty egregious and pretty bad, and there have to be extenuating circumstances that show the parent knew the kid was messed up,
mhm.
should have acted, did zero. That
Right.
being said, I think the right thing was done with that case. And the reason I think that is because there were so many mistakes made on that case. First of all,
Mhm.
the parents just ignored the signs. The mom had to know that Ethan was disturbed because she cleaned his room once a week. Ethan never cleaned his room. She saw the things up there in his room that we won't necessarily go into, but you guys probably all know what they are. And that being said, they chose not to act on that. When
Right.
he reached out for help, he was told to suck it up, and they basically made huge mistakes. Now, on the other side of the coin, having worked in a school as a
Mhm.
school resource officer for 6 years and also as a school official for a few years, I can tell you that the school, in my opinion, this is my opinion, really messed up by not searching Ethan's
Oh,
backpack and locker that day.
I
Th-
agree. I
They
agree.
had absolute cause. Reasonable suspicion is all it takes in a school. And
Mhm.
that is basically, Rachel, you know as well as me, that's what a reasonable person would think: something's messed up. Maybe we should
Yep.
take a look at things. They did not do that. The Crumleys did not tell them they had a gun. And, it went down a little bit after that. And so many mistakes, but I do believe that the conviction on Jennifer was proper. She should have known better, and she chose not to act. I'm going to be real interested where it goes with James.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they both were. You can't, I'm sorry, but your kid asks for help, especially a teenage boy asks for help.
Hmm.
I mean, good for him asking for help, honestly.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
fact that he was ignored, it's really sad. It's really sad. And yeah, I mean, I think I get it. Schools don't wanna be sued, but man, I mean, you'd rather be sued because children died in your
Right.
school? Or would you rather
Right.
be sued because you looked at a kid's backpack and you should I mean, I really just think it's a ridiculous,
Yeah.
logic, like, it doesn't make any sense, so,
And
uh
that's a great. Sorry, Rach. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, that's
No, that's a great point you just mentioned because I forgot to bring that up. Having been in schools, I can tell you guys that schools are really freaked out about overstepping their boundaries, doing bad searches, violating students' rights, things like that. But when when they had those letters and those drawings that were done, and they knew that he had searched for ammunition the day before, and the gun looked exactly like the one they had that the Crumleys saw when the Crumleys saw the drawings. They should have known they had enough cause to
Right.
search that school
Well,
or
and
search the locker.
let's talk about the fact that that's just so unfortunate that a school has to worry about whether or not they search a backpack.
Yeah.
If my kid's school wanted to look in my kid's backpack, go for it.
Hmm.
I'm not if there's something they're concerned about, go for it. To me as a parent, I don't get it. I wanna know, did you find what you were concerned
Right.
about? That's important. Like, so just the fact that they have to be concerned, I mean, what the heck are they get I don't really understand that. What suing a school because they
Hmm.
looked in your kid's backpack and locker, I don't get that at all. That makes 0 sense to me, like,
Yeah.
because they're
And
gonna find something like if they found marijuana in his bag or something or
hmm.
whatever, then, like,
Hmm.
okay, but that's again I don't know. I don't get it. I
Yeah.
feel like if you're in a
uh,
school building, it should be the rules of the school, right? Like
yeah.
you can't bring, certain things into federal buildings. You can't I can't even bring my cell phone into the courthouse here, right? So, like,
Right.
it I don't know. I get it. You can't just go around unpacking everybody's stuff all the time, but that's not what's happening, you
Yeah.
know? It's
Yeah.
not it just blows my mind.
It blows my mind too, but I mean, the reality of it too is that we live in a time now in a country where lawsuits they're
I
filed
know.
constantly. I mean,
Insane.
it's crazy. So,
Schools should I feel like schools should be, like, immune wi if they can show there should be a lesser, lower threshold for schools
mhm,
looking into the kids' properties. I mean, honestly, it's
I agree.
if it's to keep the greater, um, building and children safe, I don't
Yeah.
get why. I mean, some schools, don't even allow backpacks or lockers anymore. I mean,
Mhm.
so much is electronic, kids don't have to carry, books around and stuff like that, anymore.
Yeah.
So, a lot of schools are just going without that, which is good, but yeah, man,
Yeah.
it's scary. It's
It is.
scary that
It
they have
is.
to be scared enough that a, parent's gonna sue them for looking in their kid's backpack when
Yep.
probably there was a reason to look.
Yep. Absolutely.
Man, that scatters my brain.
I know. I hear you.
Yeah.
So, looks like the questions have kind of stopped coming in. Should we
Yeah.
adjourn here, or last call? Is there anything else that anyone wants to chat about before we sign off so we
Any
don't
deep, dark secrets you wanna know about? I mean, I don't have any, Scott might, it's
Thank you
I
for that.
it kinda gives me that vibe, but
Yeah, yeah,
maybe we
whatever,
just
yeah.
put it out into public now. Mike, anything
you
that you wanna know about your dad? That I mean,
you chose to work with me on this,
this would
so,
be this would be a
yeah.
great time for Mike to ask his dad some really pressing questions. Oh, Mike, tell us. Oh, we need to have him on as a guest.
We
We
do.
need to have Scott's kids on as guests. Talk about their experiences with Scott, not in law enforcement.
Hmm. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that.
I better be careful. Scott's gonna give back what I what I put out there, so I
Oh
should
my
probably be
gosh.
quiet now. I've told all my embarrassing things other than I think I told in the last video, I bought a single curtain for my
Oh yeah, you
window.
did say that. And I almost
Mm.
did the same thing. We had to get blackout curtains for our rooms that we're doing this in, and Rachel had ordered what she thought was two curtains, and it was just one panel. So yeah, and I almost did the same thing when I went to the store the other day. So
It's
yeah,
amazing.
I know.
Michael Kyle's my husband, so Michael wants Kyle to come on too. Yeah. I don't know what he would say about me. Well, he had his chance here. He could have asked whatever he wanted, and he didn't. Didn't watch that. And my sister didn't even show up, man. But she'll do the replay, and then she'll send me 85 texts about like while I'm at work. I'll get 85 texts from her asking questions. So yeah, that's what she did last time.
That's
Dad,
funny.
Yep, Dad, your lighting is on point
See,
today.
I
Good
just
job.
saw that. Thanks, Mike, for that.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how that makes me feel. Thank you.
I'm fading into the darkness. I need to adjust my lamp here at some point. Guys, thanks so much for being on. This was really
Thank you,
fun.
guys.
Yeah, share the video and yeah, that's all I got. Guys, have a good weekend. Oh, one question, wait.
One question, yeah.
You take that one, Scott, that's a you.
Okay, so this is Erica asking this. Is that the one you're
Yeah.
referring to? Okay, so
Yeah.
one question I have is related to Sebastian. Should I wait? Is it 28? I can't
Twen
read that.
28 degree temp
Thanks.
I got you, 28-degree temp, in the night or early AM hours on the 25th into the 26th. So does that temperature support the scent to be found outside of the house if it's cold?
So, really good question. And from what I remember from my canine training, it's been a while, but that can still support scent. What's really important, Erica, at the time is the rest of the conditions, whether there's moisture in the air, because anytime you have moisture in the air, that holds the scent down and it holds it down low to the ground. Whereas if you don't have that, sometimes the scent will dissipate a little bit more, and the dogs will maybe be able to pick up a track, but they may end up doing what's called air scenting, where they're just picking up the scent as it's whirling around up there. And that's a little bit harder for dogs to air scent and to be productive than it would be if they just get on a good path and they're just on it and they're going. So I hope that answers that question.
I'm gonna say in
Yeah,
Tennessee, when the temperatures are gonna be greater than pretty
yeah.
significantly greater than that as the day goes on, there probably was moisture
Mhm. I think so.
involved in that 20. It wouldn't be a dry, I mean, Tennessee's not a
Right.
um,
I would agree.
dry state like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too, and I think there were probably, if there was going to be scent there, I think it would have been there, and for whatever reason, I don't they found
Wild,
nothing. It's crazy. So,
wild.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, should have
Yeah,
been there.
yeah.
You're welcome,
Alright,
Erica.
guys.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, cool,
All right,
cool.
guys.
Alright, we'll keep you posted on what we're gonna do for our next show. We don't even really know yet. We're tying some things down now, but we'll keep you posted, and thank you guys for being here and
Thank you,
sharing our
guys.
link and all that. You're awesome.
Thanks, guys. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
We'll see you soon. Bye.
Thanks. Bye, guys.